So, The World Ends With You released this past Friday, the Switch port of one of the most beloved cult classics from the DS era. After playing it again, I've gotta ask, right off the bat, to those of you who have played it before or are playing it now, is this not one of the greatest video game soundtracks of all time? I mean, I feel like it genuinely, it has to be a contender. I mean, like top 10, maybe even. Pretty much every track it's just insanely catchy. It's so good. But if you've been following the talks since the release of the Switch version, it has been getting slammed as a shoddy port, but there have also been a fair amount of people defending it too. So how bad is it really? Well, let's talk about it. If you're unfamiliar, the game follows protagonist Niku Sakuraba and his friends that he meets along the way, who have all been selected to participate in the Reaper's game, where all participants have 7 days to complete a series of missions where they must battle enemies called the Noise, as well as deal with interference from the Reapers themselves. Going off of that kick-ass soundtrack aspect, there's a heavy emphasis on the world's pop culture, music, fashion, all that stuff. Thematically, it actually sort of reminds me of Tokyo Mirage Sessions in that way. Gameplay-wise, and here's where the complaints come in, this is a real-time action kind of RPG. As I mentioned before, while you're exploring the world and completing quests, you'll have to battle the Noise, the enemies of this game. These instance-based battles play out in real time. You have various skills and abilities that you can equip for battles, but all of your attacks are on a meter system, so when you deplete the meter, you have to wait for it to recharge before you can use it again. Seems fine, right? But casting those moves, as well as the movement of your character in the fights, if you have the gamepad docked and are playing on the TV, are all based on the use of the Joy-Con, one individual Joy-Con, as a pointer. Each skill requires a different motion to use. It could be just moving to an enemy and tapping on the attack button or holding the button. Could be holding the button and performing a swipe motion. But note that you're also using that same pointer to move. And with a lot of moves, you're going to want to have space between the enemies, and trying to do the move motions with the Joy-Con is really clunky. A lot of times it'll read as the wrong thing and you'll screw up. It's just, it's really irritating. I'll just say it that way, playing the game in this mode. Overall, the controls, when in docked mode, they're incredibly poor. I haven't seen anyone debate that. And if you play in tablet mode, you'll quickly find out why. Because in that mode, you're doing the same tapping, swiping, and such, but using your finger as the pointer on the actual game screen. You're tapping the screen. In this mode, the control is much more intuitive, and keeping control of your character's position while using attacks is much more manageable, which is because this game is pretty close to a straight port of the mobile version for iOS and Android devices. So all they really changed in terms of the combat controls for the docked version is you use a Joy-Con essentially as your finger, and you're aiming it where you want to tap on the screen. No matter how you want to look at it, this was incredibly lazy. And it's weird that you're actually able to move with the Joy-Con stick when exploring the world, just not in combat. Yeah, just walking around the city, you can use the stick. It's almost like they were gonna do that, but they gave up or something. Now, I can only capture footage of the game when it's docked. I don't have any way to capture Switch footage when it's in handheld mode, so I put a lot of time into playing the game while docked. And yeah, like I said, it sucks. But you can get used to it. It's not unplayable by any means. And also, like I said, playing it in tablet mode is fun, and overall, this is still a great game. But here's the thing, the main problem for me. I shouldn't be paying $50, almost the price of a full game, for a rushed mobile port. And the mobile version of this game is currently about 18 bucks on the Apple Store, by the way. This package is not worth the price. Sure, there are improvements from the mobile versions, additional content, cooperative play, where you're able to play this two-player, which isn't available on mobile versions. And if you want to twist it around in your head, the docked is just an extra option, whereas for this game, handheld, you could consider it to be the main way you're supposed to play it. That's all true, but is that worth paying $32 more for this version over the iOS? I don't think so. And I can already hear people talking about how we pay more for a lot of AAA third-party games on Switch than on other consoles, But that's the opposite situation. In those cases, those games were typically $60 when they originally came out, and we're paying for the work it takes to get them running on the Switch. It often takes a lot of tweaking to get something like a Doom or Wolfenstein 2 on the Switch. This game that runs on iPads with pretty much the same control scheme did not take that kind of effort to bring over. In fact, the opposite. They seem to be trying to get away with doing as little as possible. And it's really a shame that they decided to rush this out the door, because this is still a solid game all around. I really like the story, music, I just can't say enough good things about it, and it's fun to play in that handheld mode. But with bringing it over to the Switch, giving it a title like Final Remix, and yeah, charging $50 for it, I expected more. I expected better improvements. I get we're working with an older DS game, but you were also working with a DS game when you originally made that mobile version. Without the dual screens, much of this game had to be altered, and you still sold that at a reduced price. You should have went back similarly for the Switch and rebuilt some of these systems to optimize the game for it if you wanted to charge the $50. Because honestly, if this was like $20 or $25 as is, or hell, maybe they don't even include a docked mode. There are already some Switch games that are only playable portably. If they went that route, I'd be fine with it. You want to be cheap, you want to be lazy with it, fine, but charge what it's worth, and that's not $50. And that's why I do want to make it clear that this is still a really good game, because people should keep an eye out for that price drop down the line. I do think this is a fine candidate to get some price slashing in maybe even a few months, because if you are a JRPG fan and you haven't checked this out before, you really should. But yeah, at this price, the value just isn't there, especially now. We're already into that big holiday release season. There are so many game choices for you to spend your money on at the moment that I think this should actually be an easy pass. I don't think anyone is sitting here like, oh, I hope The World Ends With You is good because there's just nothing coming out right now. Put your money on a different game and wait for the price drop, or hell, buy that iOS version. But yeah, it really does suck that The World Ends With You is probably the best game on Nintendo Switch that I just can't recommend right now. They're trying to charge too much for what is a half-assed mobile port. Once more, people should definitely play it, and poor reception of this may hurt the chance for a sequel, which will also suck because I do think this series does deserve a new game fully realized on Switch, but I also don't think consumers should be expected to pay almost full game price for this to get one. And with that, this video's a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on The World Ends With You Final Remix in the comments. What do you think about paying $50 for what is essentially a port of the mobile version of this game? Again, especially at this time when we have all these heavy hitters releasing so rapidly, I think it's going to be interesting to see what these initial sales numbers are for The World Ends With You. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this discussion of The World Ends With You Final Remix on Nintendo Switch. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, and if you want to keep the conversation going, hit me up on Twitter at Johnny Zakari, and join my Discord, Shy Guy and Friends, link to both in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching.